My career, to this point, has given me identity and self-worth. It's given me a meaning to be, and to continue to be meaningful to others. Well, I wasn't really interested in ballet at first. I was very interested. I was a very physical person, had a lot of energy, and I was attracted to, acrobats and gymnastics and the circus and things like that. You know, that sort of, I suppose every boy's fascinated with that kind of thing. And so my mother thought, well, let's put him into sort of exercise in acrobat class and gymnastics and things like that, which she did. So my teacher, Eileen Morrison, thought, well, you know, in order to improve your acrobatics, take ballet. And my daughter, June, teaches ballet, so take some ballet and it'll make your acrobats better. So I did. But I didn't really like it. I didn't like it very much at all, you know, holding on to a wooden stick attached to a wall and doing a tendu for 18 counts. It wasn't my idea of fun or exercise. Didn't appreciate it. But it was a few weeks later that my parents took me to see ballet at the old theater in Hamilton, which I don't think it exists anymore, where the National Ballet was performing, the La Sylphide. And that was my first ballet and my first introduction to this art form where no one spoke. And yet I understood everything. And I was fluent in this movement language. I loved it. And I thought, well, then that's where I want to be. If ballet is going to take me there, then that's what I want to do. And so I was focusing then more on ballet. And then my teacher said, well, perhaps you should go to be viewed at the National Ballet School in Toronto, where there are other boys like you and who have the same interests, and they are expert in guiding a young person into the professional world. I did go, and I was accepted, but my parents wouldn't let me go. They didn't think I was old enough. They wanted me to stay home. I tried again the next year, which again, yes, they would have taken me into the school. But again, my parents thought, no, let's one more year at home. And so I finally went to the National Ballet School when I was 12. There were so many people there like me who needed to dance, who were dancing all the time. And I stayed in residence at 506 Jarvis. And there was this big sort of common room area, you remember, and every moment we had, we would go there and we would dance, and dancing in the hallway, dancing in the bedroom, you know. We were always sort of moving. Movement was our language, and this is, you could see that in other kids. You know, of course we spoke with each other as well, but doesn't mean I didn't miss home. I did at the beginning. But then as school moved onwards and I made friends, and it was a natural way of life, I knew I was on the right track. And Betty Oliphant definitely was a strong influence in my training and in my work ethic. And in those days, I mean, it was okay to be really tough on kids and very hard on kids, and not necessarily, sensitive to their feelings. It was just necessary to do that to succeed and to be the best, which was great. And I remember being in classes, and Betty Oliphant would raise her voice to some of the girls and shoot out these corrections, which were very, hard and severe, leaving them oftentimes in tears. There'd be at least one per class that would, and one day Betty Oliphant got very frustrated, and I think she had like 3 girls crying in the class at the same time or something like that. And she said, "Why are you crying? You just have to be the best you can possibly be. Why can't you be more like Frank? He just laughs when I yell at him. Why can't you be like that?" Daniel Sellier was another strong influence. He was a male teacher. He was tough as well. And he often raised his voice to us, and got, again, with that same feeling that there was this urgency of getting the corrections to the student as fast as possible, because, I realized later, life is so short. The dancer's career, the dancer's life is so short, that if you don't get the information out fast, the child doesn't have enough time to absorb it and then, improve to the best of their ability. But yeah, he was tough as well. But it was that male influence. And he was still young enough that he could dance. So we saw this male figure moving in the class, demonstrating to us that, oh, this is much easier to move this way because my body is more constructed like his than it is to a girl's. And we were doing male steps, which required a lot of what we already had, which was a lot of, power and jumping and turning. And I remember in class, he said, "Oh, just turn." So just turn. So there was Robert de Rosier and I in class, and we were just turning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And I was doing 7 pirouettes. He was doing 8 or more. I don't know. We looked awful, but we were turning, and that was just to get us going and to get the head spots. So, and we were having a lot of fun in his class as well, because it was so exhausting and yet gratifying at the same time. So he was another strong influence. Another strong influence was Nancy Schwenker. Her character classes were good, wonderful, but it was when Murray Kilgore came in, and taught pas de deux to us in class. And he would partner Nancy. And we would see how he worked with her and she worked with him to make the steps look effortless. My determination was to be part of that life, that magic, and the down-to-earth real life, because I saw both. I was lucky enough to be part of, a little courtier boy and a clown in Mother Gigogne in the Nutcracker. So I was part of their rehearsal life. I was part of their performance life. I was part of the backstage life. and I was part of the onstage life. So in a way, in a sense, I had already arrived when I was 12. So I already arrived where I wanted to be. I just wanted to stay there. So as I stayed there, I was determined to be better and better and better, as I saw many examples of people who were really fantastic. The company, they were going on tour to United States. Don't remember where. Oh yeah, maybe I do. Tucson, Arizona, I think. Anyway, they were leaving to go on the road, and they had 39 dancers. There was room for one more. And Betty Oliphant called me into her office and said the National Ballet Company needs a male dancer. And they're going on tour somewhere in the United States. And she said, do you want to go? Because I think you're ready to go. I think you're ready to leave the school. And yet I hadn't completed grade 12. So I said, yes, of course I want to go. I didn't want to finish school. If I had an opportunity to leave and go into a professional company, I said yes. My parents were dead against it, so it was a big battle there. But I kind of went out and thought to myself, and they thought, that if, once that tour is over, I'll come back and I'll finish my grade 12. Well, that never happened. Celia Franca definitely had a determined way about her, and she, in her own words, was, trying to sort of put a veneer of technique on all of us, because we weren't the best in the world, but we were a fledgling company, and she was trying to make the best and make us look as the best that we could possibly look. And so, we all did our best, and she was a leader, a true leader, and we should all be grateful to her for having that kind of strength to hold on during the days that it didn't seem possible that the company could survive. I really appreciated his recognizing me and making it known to the public around him. The way Rudolph taught or mentored was not by his voice. He didn't speak corrections. He didn't say, this is what you need to do to make this happen, to me anyway. But he did more by example. To give you an example, we were I don't know where, somewhere in the mid-States, and we were preparing to do the evening's performance. As usual, we had company class on stage, and then I had a small rehearsal after the class on stage. And then before the performance, I had a small rehearsal of the Sleeping Beauty's Prince, and I was practicing the solo and doing that manège, that famous manège at the end of that third act solo. And Rudolph Nureyev happened to be passing by in the wings, and I was doing something wrong with these chassé coupé jetés, consecutive chassé coupé jetés, and he saw that I wasn't getting it right, and that my circle around the stage, the manège, was getting smaller and smaller. I was turning into myself, and the only thing, then he came on stage and he stood in front of me, and he took his hand, his arm in his hand, And he said, like this, indicating that this was my leg. Like that. And I went, okay. And I did. So my leg drew the line that he was drawing with his arm and hand, that. And so my leg drew that line in the air. It worked. I think the reason why Cain and Augustyn worked was that we, first, I think because we liked each other, and we had similar, I think, sense of humor. Like, it was so, we were under so much pressure that I think if we couldn't laugh, we'd crack up. Like, we would be in straitjackets. So we could laugh, and we also could hear the music together. In the same way. We heard it in the same way. And so as you interpret the music and you hear the music in the same way, I think that helped the unity and the strength of it. The rest, I just chalk that up to magic. Like, I don't know, I can't explain magic. I don't know what that means, hardly. But there was something, remarkable about dancing with her. Not every performance was great, but there were some that were incredible, and there were some that were remarkable, and some that were actually very spiritual. Not in a weird way. It was just that, you know how sometimes there's a performance that you can do, a 3-hour performance, and it feels like it was like 12 minutes. And that it worked, and that everything worked, and that you weren't really there, or you didn't really have your full hand in that performance. It was something else that carried you through that performance. You were the puppet, but something happened. And I do remember one performance. It was in Fredericton, New Brunswick. It was one of those Giselle performances. It was unbelievable. And Karen felt this exactly the same way. Our Joanne Nesbitt and David Scott, the people that coached us, were in tears. I mean, that doesn't happen, right? They see things that were wrong. But when they come backstage and they're in tears, and the audience was, the curtain came down, there was silence. There was no applause. And then the applause erupted. But it was just one of those magical performances that I didn't think I really did it. Something else did. Like there was some force there that made that performance special. I wish I was in the audience. And those are the kinds of performances you live for. I think some roles that I really relate to or related to, they weren't really the romantic sort of, the prince roles, the Swan Lake or the Giselles. I could do them, that's fine, but they weren't really challenges. The ones that were fun were things like, Sphinx, that was something you could really sink your teeth into. And Romeo and Juliet, where there's Romeo and there's a character to play, and there's, and there's Benno and there's Mercutio, and you've got all these, and then, Rosalind, and then of course Juliet is there, and you've got all these players that made it a little more complicated on the stage. And one that I found an extreme challenge was Onegin. John Cranker's Onegin, because I couldn't really find the character in myself. He wasn't in my mind, he wasn't a very nice person. And he lacked a conscience. So I had to find a way to portray that. Maurice Béjar's Songs of a Wayfarer, I danced with Thomas Schrammick. That was an extremely intense rehearsal period that we had with Maurice, and understanding that role and understanding the dynamic and what can be done on that stage. Not like I, you, love, you, I, dance. You know, it was more. There was so much meat behind it, and there was also an abstraction that I really enjoyed. I think I came up to an ending of a phase of knowing nothing to getting to the point where you've learned so much and you want more and more and more, and you're wearing yourself out and down. That was the end of a phase. During that end of that phase, I was hungry to dance in more roles than what the National Ballet Company could offer me per year. And so I joined the Deutsche Berlin Oper in Berlin when there was still a wall, and Gert Reinholm was the artistic director. I danced with the Berlin Ballet Opera Company and with the National Ballet Company. So I was constantly flying back and forth. That was a 14-hour turnaround flight. So I would learn choreography in Toronto, fly to Berlin, learn choreography in Berlin, fly back to Toronto, perform what I had learned 3 weeks ago, then fly to Berlin and perform what I had keep going back and forth like that. And I realized my body I was killing myself, because flying depletes so much from you, and the fatigue level was extremely high, that I don't think my output was as good as high as it could have been. So I learned a tremendous amount from Gert Reinholm, from discussions with him about direction and company management and how he worked with management and dancers. But I had to stop that because it was too much on my body. So I joined Boston Ballet and did the same type of thing, except Boston's a lot closer to Toronto than Berlin. And so I did that for a period of 4 years. And then I got to the point where I thought, you know, time to move on. I needed to take another step. So I took that step towards direction, towards directing a company and their dancers, and in North America, finding the dollars, not like they do in Europe where money is given to you by the government. North America, you have to find those dollars to help make a company perform and survive. So I did that in Ottawa. I was still dancing, and I was placing myself in repertoire that I knew I still looked good in, because I knew my body was getting older. So the works that I brought into the company suited me, because it was necessary that I perform for the company's survival. I also realized that I was spending 75% of my time behind a desk and 25% of my time in the studio and then performing. That was, you know, that was tough. It was also very risky to sit behind a desk and also say, oh, by the way, next week I'm going to be performing, so I better get my ass into class. You know, that was risky and not a good thing to do. I was also teaching company class, It was tough. It was hard, but it was also very gratifying, very satisfying.
Here, Gabrielle, land, don't land.
Am I dropping you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Land, and then go. Land, that's it.
I realized that I had skill in teaching, all during this time. And I was teaching company class, and I was teaching at other locations and schools as guest teacher and things like that. I had an affinity for it, so I continued doing that. Adelphi came up, and I can't remember exactly how it happened, but someone from Adelphi called me because they have we had mutual friends, and so they said, "Oh, Frank, maybe he might be interested." And somebody called me, and I said, "Adelphi, where is that? Please tell me." "Oh, we're a university, and it's, you know, we have a dance department. Would you be interested in coming and becoming the chair of the dance department?" So I said, "Let me think about it." I put the phone down, and I picked up the phone, and I called Grant Stratty and said, "Okay, Grant, so what's it like at a university?" I'd never been to a university. I've never worked at a university before. What's it like? So from Vancouver, he and I spoke on the phone about university life and what it could mean. And I tried to understand what he was trying to say, but it's such a different world. I understand it now, but I didn't really understand it. So I thought, okay, I'll go there and I'll give it 6 months. 6 months turned into 24 years. I realized that the knowledge I have is useless unless I give it away. I won't take it with me. It's the passing on. It's to give the torch to someone else and say, now take this and make it better. You know, because that's what we did with the people that we were taught by and the people that were influenced us. You know, we took that torch and we excelled even more. I was just at the National Ballet School, and my God, those dancers are incredible. And they're 18, you know, 17, 18 years old, and they're beautiful, well-trained, you know, more than we could hope to be at that age. Wow. So there's evolution, and I'd like to be part of that evolution.